Okay, let's think about this for a second. What is a nation? I mean, really, it's this incredibly powerful idea, right? It's literally shaped the world map as we know it. But here's the kicker. It wasn't always around. Someone had to invent it. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into exactly how that happened. So let's jump back to 1848. Take a look at this. It's a print by a French artist, Frédéric Sorrieu. And what you're seeing, well, it's his dream for the future. He called it a pact between nations. And you've got to understand, this was revolutionary. This wasn't a map of kings and their empires. Nope, this was something completely new. And honestly, it looks kind of familiar, right? A world made of nations. But that just brings us right back to the big question we've got to tackle first. What is a nation, anyway? It sounds like such a simple question, but trust me, the answer is way more complicated than you'd think. Okay, so let's zoom in on Sorrieu's vision here, because the details are everything. You've got people from all over Europe, from America, all marching together. And look where they're heading, right past a Statue of Liberty. But even more important, look down at the ground. See all that? Those are the shattered remains of crowns, the symbols of the old kings and queens. This wasn't just some nice little dream. This was a call for some serious, radical change. So, those broken crowns, they stood for the end of something called absolutist rule. And what's that? Well, it's basically a system where one person, the monarch, has all the power. No checks, no balances. It was usually super centralized, built on military might, and, well, pretty repressive. That was the world that this new idea of nationalism was ready to take on. You can see Sorrieu's vision was, let's just say, super idealistic. It's a total utopian dream. You've got everyone neatly sorted into their own nations. You can tell them apart by their flags and their clothes. They're all marching in this perfect line, and you've even got angels looking down, which is supposed to symbolize brotherhood or fraternity. It's this vision of a perfectly harmonious world of nations. But, an artist's dream is one thing. What does a nation look like in the real world? To get a more, let's say, solid definition, we've got to switch gears from art to philosophy. And for that, we're turning to a French philosopher named Ernst Renan. He dug into this exact question back in 1882. So, Renan basically said, hold on, it's not that simple. He argued against all the easy answers. A nation isn't just people who speak the same language. It's not people of the same race or religion. It's not even just about sharing a piece of land. No, for him, it had to be something way, way deeper. What he landed on was that a nation is more like a spiritual thing. It's built on this long, shared history, all the struggles, the sacrifices, the big wins. And it needs everyone to have a common will right now, in the present. And this leads to his most famous idea, and it's a big one. A nation's existence is a daily plebiscite. It's a choice its people make every single day to stick together. Okay, so daily plebiscite. What on earth does that mean? Well, a plebiscite is just a direct vote, where everyone gets to say yes or no to something. So Renan is basically saying that every single day, the people of a nation are kind of casting a silent vote. They're voting yes to being part of this big group. It's an active choice. It's ongoing consent. Now, this is a pretty powerful idea, right? But it didn't just hang out in philosophy books. So where did it first explode into reality? Well, the first really clear, massive expression of this idea of a nation came with the French Revolution, all the way back in 1789. Think about this. Before 1789, France basically belonged to the king. It was his personal property. The revolution just flipped the entire script. It declared that power, sovereignty, wasn't in the hands of the monarch anymore. It now belonged to the people, to the citizens of France. From now on, the people were in charge of their own destiny. And that caused this huge shift in how people saw themselves. You weren't a subject anymore, just someone who had to obey a king. You are now a citizen, an active member of the nation, with equal rights all laid out in a constitution. I mean, that is a complete transformation of what it means to belong to something. Okay, but how do you actually do that? How do you get millions of people to suddenly feel like they're part of the same team? Well, the French revolutionaries basically had a playbook. Step 1, come up with some big, unifying ideas, like la patrie, the fatherland, and le citoyen, the citizen. Step 2, get rid of the old royal flags and bring in new national symbols, like the famous tricolor. Step 3, set up a central government, the National Assembly, to make sure the laws were the same for everybody. And finally, Step 4, push for one standard language and even uniform weights and measures to really tie the whole country together. They were literally building a nation from scratch. And let's be clear, this change was not a quiet one. It was a violent, dramatic break from the past. And nothing symbolizes that more than the storming of the Bastille prison. That one event was like a signal to the entire world that the old system of kings and absolute power was being torn down to make way for something brand new, the French nation. So you've got this incredible, world-changing idea. Are you going to keep it to yourself? Not if you're the French revolutionaries. They truly believed that what they'd figured out in France wasn't just for them, it was a blueprint for everyone. And they were ready to take it on the road. They literally declared it was their mission to go liberate the rest of Europe from tyrants. So, as the French armies started marching into places like Holland, Belgium, Switzerland, and parts of Italy, they weren't just carrying guns. They were carrying this new idea of the nation. They were promising to help other people do exactly what they had just done. But as it usually does, reality turned out to be a lot messier. At first, yeah, a lot of people in these other countries were cheering. They saw the French armies as liberators. But that feeling didn't last long. The excitement started to fade when people realized this new liberty came with a pretty hefty price tag. New taxes, censorship, and this was a big one, being forced to join the French army and go fight their wars. Pretty soon, these liberators started to look an awful lot like the old guys they'd just gotten rid of. And that really gets us to the heart of nationalism's complicated legacy. It was an idea that started with this beautiful dream of freedom and brotherhood. But the way it played out in the real world, well, it ended up being a messy mix of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's go all the way back to that image we started with, Sorrieu's dream. In one sense, he got what he wanted, right? The world did become a world of nations. But that whole fraternity part, that's where things got tricky. Because the minute you create a powerful sense of us, you also create a them. And that led to some pretty fierce competition. When you mix that new national pride with old-school imperial ambition, well, you get a recipe for disaster. A disaster that eventually led straight into World War I. And yet, underneath all that conflict, all that politics, that idea from the philosopher Renan is still there. The nation isn't really about a flag or a line on a map. At its very core, it's about people making a constant collective choice to be, well, a people. And that's the thing, isn't it? This idea, born in the 19th century, is still so alive today. It's a choice that each of us makes every single day, whether we think about it or not. The choice to see ourselves as part of this bigger group. So that leaves us with one final question to chew on. In our world today, which feels more connected than ever, but also more divided than ever, what does that daily choice to belong together actually mean for us and for our future?